Hello everyone, I am back today with another video. This is going to be a recording of my round 3 game from the 2024 Open League Tournament with commentary provided after the fact. And this is also a video of our game itself with move times as they were in the game. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get into the game and see how it went. So this game was against Dave. That's who I was matched up with in round 3. He's actually a bit higher ranked than me. I made sure to check his rating and his ranking before we began the game. He's about 650 elo, which I would say is a considerable bit more than I tend to hover around, which is normally about 500 to 550. I think I was about 530 elo at the time that we were playing this game. But I was figuring that I might have my hands full with this matchup, given that he's so highly rated. He's actually, I think, normally in the top 20 on the website Strategos ranking, kind of on the regular, which is not a place that I occupy very often. So I figured to go with a setup a little more tricky. You can see my flag position down here. Also got my little bit of a berry general here. Otherwise, though, kind of something abnormal for me is a pretty aggressive Marshal here. I think you'll see that factor in the game. And of course, this we're opening up on the right side here. That piece right here, this came from this spot right here, and I was figuring that it might be, maybe a major, maybe something less, maybe even a captain. Maybe he's looking to trade, maybe a major to take the captain. But you'll see here, it does not end up as well for me. He actually takes that with his colonel, so that's not nearly as helpful for me. Not a great exchange to just lose that major right off the bat. And I had kind of planned to open up on the right side there, but that's going to kind of stunt my ability to do that. His major or his colonel just kind of sitting there. Any piece I move is gonna, I think, meet its end to that colonel. So I figure, okay, I'll kind of change plans and we'll advance on the left side now. And you're gonna see me be a little bit aggressive here. Kind of moving that colonel up. I think kind of looking for a bit of a cheap way, quick way to get some of that material back that I had just lost, that major. So you're gonna see I actually don't attack this move piece with the scout, but instead I scout this bomb. Then I do move up with the captain, and then I come in with the well, you'll see next. I'll go ahead and move up with the colonel. So I'm going to be fairly aggressive on that right or the left side there, and I think that's kind of owing to the fact that I'm trying to just get quick material back if I can, having lost that major. Just a frustrating start to the game when you plan to open up on the right side here, be aggressive. Lose material, kind of get that shut down, and then have to go to plan B. And then even that's not really very successful, because he hits my colonel with a scout, which is not really what I was hoping to get. I would have rather he hit my captain with the scout, or I would have rather that not be a scout at all. I'd have to, I guess, play the cards I'm dealt. So at this point, I'm not up any info anymore, because we both know each other's colonel. And I'm kind of just down a major, and I'm not really sure what to do actually on the left side. I sort of go ahead and bring up some mid-level pieces, mid to upper level pieces, captain and major there in the center. Again, trying to like pick up lieutenant, captain, sergeant, something if I can. But he's going to be pretty tight with that material, so I'm not going to have a whole lot of good opportunities to do that. But he does seem pretty content to keep moving on the right side, although he's not actually attacking or seemingly doing much. But I go ahead and scout that to captain. Okay, another bit of an impasse. I don't think I want to hit that with my colonel, because I would probably just lose the colonel then, and then I'd be down a major and a colonel. But trading the captain is not really all that helpful, because then I'm just, then I'm going to have to fire another scout to find something else, and it's probably just a lieutenant or a sergeant. And I can't really attack with my major very well on the left or the center because I'm already down a major. So I don't really want to go down two of them. So I kind of sit here for a while, kind of just considering what the best play would be. Not really sure what to do at this point. So you're going to see me move that scout and then hover my cursor over my Marshal there. And I decide at this point, okay, well, I'm going to try to take advantage of the fact that my Marshal is abnormally, placed very in aggressive position. And I think this would have worked better if Dave was someone who had played me often. I don't actually, we might have played before, but I don't recall anything about those games, if in fact we had. I think this would have worked better if he was someone who I had played against often, or someone who's familiar with my playstyle, and that I usually have a more defensive Marshal. But he might just consider me sort of a generic opponent, and that if you just end up discovering a major and a captain in the center, maybe there's a pretty powerful piece behind them, backing them up, maybe even the Marshal. And that's a bit abnormal for me to put my Marshal here so early on, but not out of line for a lot of other players. So that sort of gimmick there, to move up the Marshal, perhaps a bit less useful than it would be against someone who is more familiar with my playstyle, and you'll see that actually kind of play out as the game goes on. But I'm just kind of sitting here again. I'm not really sure exactly what to do. Not really any good options. If I move anything on the left side, I think it or the right side, I think it kind of dies instantly. I don't really want to plunge in with a captain or a major in the center, because then I could lose them, and then what's the use in going down 2 pieces? I'm trying to play cautious, especially because I have a lot of sort of respect for my opponent entering the game, seeing how highly rated he was, and I really want to avoid going down 2 pieces if possible. And I think in hindsight, if I was playing this game again, I probably would have come up with the piece that I was up, which is a lieutenant. Try to take a scout for info. Even a sergeant would be better. Kind of use those 2 lieutenants I have in the center. Probably advance with them in the center. But I wasn't really sure what to do in real time while playing this game. So I sort of contemplate that I think my best bet is to do something on the left. I know a bomb, I know a captain, I've got info. I don't have any info in the center. I didn't just want to fire scouts and then probably end up unable to hit those pieces with my major or captain anyway, for fear of going down 2 pieces. So I actually move out with my general here, which is a bit of an interesting move, and then that's changed when he hits on the right side that captain with his major. So that's actually a really good play for him. And of course, I'm going to be fine with trading those colonels there. I usually tend to want to trade, but that was actually a really good play for him there, because he was up a major. Then he went from being up a major to being up a captain, so he sort of transferred the piece he was up, but he got info for it. And now he's not only leading material by being up that captain, but he's actually leading an info too, because he knows this colonel. So that was an excellent play by him. But it does give me the opportunity to do something I think you'll see develop pretty soon here. And he's going to come down with this scout. He's going to scout my lieutenant. Didn't really see any need to address that. But I realized at this point, oh, well, I'm not down a major anymore, but I am down a captain. So now that kind of frees me up to actually be aggressive with this major. So at this point, I move the general back, and I'm going to move the major into the field of play. My plan at this point is to hit his captain, that's right here, because then I'm going to kind of do the inverse, kind of invert what he just did on this right column here. By hitting the captain, I'll kind of make him up a major again, but this time I'll be the one to hopefully get some info. So he moves in, threatens that lieutenant. I don't think this captain was known or moved, so I was fine to leave it there. Kind of pull back with that lieutenant and just kind of keep moving it back. That was a captain, I was kind of in trouble if he followed, but thankfully he didn't. So I decide to sort of rotate my pieces on the left so that I can have access to that captain with my major. And I go ahead and follow through with that. First, though, I'm going to bring the captain down just because I don't want to, if I hit and then, say there's a Marshal there, I don't want him to blitz into my pieces, be able to take anything in addition. But on this here, I'm trying to figure out what he's doing on this right side, and I figured this might be the stronger piece. And I figured the miner was the one that was kind of coming down to sort of explore. I think if this was the piece that he intended to explore with, he would have already done it. So after determining that the piece that I figured was stronger was a captain, I felt safe to hit that miner. So a decent play there. Used a scout, got a miner. It's always good to be up miners, especially if you plan on playing down kind of like mid-level pieces, which I am right now, being down that captain. So I go ahead and retreat my captain until I figure, yeah, that's enough, it's guarded by the general. I'm pretty deep in my setup. Then I go ahead and hit the captain with my major. And you'll see at this point, he takes back with a colonel, which is the worst case scenario for me. It would have been nice to get like Marshal or General there, and I actually try to go and trade, but he's going to not let me trade. So at this point, we're basically even on material. We each know each other's colonel, one colonel, remaining colonel, and nothing else. And he's up a major and down a lieutenant and a minor. So because I'm up a lieutenant and a minor, it's actually fairly even at this point, I would say. But at this point, he kind of just brings what I assume is a trash piece up to kind of, prevent me from having just free access to his colonel with any piece of mine. And I'm kind of recognizing at this point my right side is pretty bare. I start to move down with my major to try to prevent any sort of aggression on that right side, especially because my flag is there. I don't want to make it obvious that that's my flag, but I certainly don't want to let him have just free access to, explore that side and stumble upon it with a miner. And I realize here, oh, my Marshal could be scouted, but I do have a scout here, so unless he has 2 scouts in a row, my Marshal should be okay. So I go ahead and chase that with a major. There's already a colonel that came from this side, so unless this is a general or marshal, I felt confident enough based on what I'd seen from him so far. Seemed a bit more of a cautious player. I didn't think he'd come down with a general or marshal like that. And of course, that major isn't technically known anyway, so I figured at worst we'd probably trade without me getting anything. But I actually moved down on that piece. I'm not really sure why. I figured, there's a chance maybe that was the more powerful one because it was guarding this piece. But I'm thankful it wasn't a miner because that could have been really bad there. But he ends up just running into the bomb, so he does know it's a bomb, which I'm not super thrilled with. And I go ahead and chase that other piece, which I figured was pretty weak, back into his setup. And then I just sort of leave it there. I don't want to go advance too far and trap my major. So I move between there, figuring neither of those are going to be able to take my major, a back row piece, and something already ran away from it. In the end, I only get a scout. I was hoping for a bit more, so that was not super ideal. Kind of gave him some more or less free info there. But he retreats with that piece, and I'm content that I sort of, kind of have this side stabilized. Nothing that he's going to do immediately there. So certainly no free access to my flag. Now here I would say, is pretty questionable play. Something in hindsight I don't think I would do again. I sort of instinctively just hit that front row piece once he moves this away. Just assuming, there's one less defender, maybe it won't have backup anymore. And I think I ended up being right, but the problem is the risk reward is pretty low there, because if I hit this and there's a major guarding that, lieutenant, which there's a fairly high likelihood of that being the case, and a person set up, I'm down a major and a captain. And yes, I'm up lieutenants, but being down 2 pieces is pretty tough to come back from. So probably not the smartest play in hindsight, but it was something I sort of instinctively did when I realized that, I sort of just instinctively recognized he moved that piece away. Perhaps, for his part, maybe a knee-jerk removal of a major or a general from guarding the lieutenant to sort of rebuff my major. And I got lucky there, really lucky by hitting that lieutenant. And of course, he comes down with that scout. I'm like, oh man, so he's, he wants to scout this marshal. Kind of me moving it out early and putting it in the center kind of backfired because, maybe he thinks it's the marshal, maybe not. But he's clearly interested in discovering what it is, regardless. Which is not ideal for me. So he does that captain. He comes down with a major. Sorry, that's actually not discovered yet. I'm gonna scout it like 2 plays from now. This piece here ends up being a major, and I'm really thankful I decided to scout it at this point. Not sure why I waited so long, but I'm really thankful we didn't hit the captain, because that would have been an excellent play for him. Great info. He would have still been up a captain by virtue of taking that captain, and he would have discovered my marshal. And at this point, I'm going to make, I would say, another fairly questionable play there. I'm not really sure why I hit the sergeant. So I kind of just voluntarily go down 2 pieces. I'm not sure I really realized that in the moment. I think I was sort of operating along the logic of, I already got a lieutenant for this captain. Why not just take another free piece? And I think I was also kind of assuming that I would get better info than his last major, because I knew his colonel and the other major that sort of just came from the center. And it makes sense that was a major, because it was the piece that was guarding the lieutenant. And honestly, I would say another questionable play there. I was sort of figuring I wanted to hit that to see if it was a bomb, or maybe like a scout, or maybe like a marshal general. But I don't think it makes as much sense to hit that piece when, it's being guarded by his major. I'd already moved next to it. It already didn't go anywhere. It's probably not going to go anywhere after that. Why not wait till maybe his major moves away? Kind of a needless, loss of a minor. So I'm down a major, down a captain. I am up 3 lieutenants and a sergeant. No longer up that minor, though. Not the best series of plays. I do have the info advantage, though, at this point, because I do know his major here. Although technically I don't even have any majors, so I don't know how useful that is. But I go ahead and I want to bring my general to the right side. I don't want to be warding off captains with my marshal, if I can help it. But I am happy to do that with my general. And by virtue of having just traded that major, I think I did figure he's probably going to come down with captains to chase my pieces around, because he knew this colonel, and only my general and Marshal will be able to take out those captains. That's actually a pretty risky play that just went there. I don't know if I didn't mention this, when exactly it happened just a minute ago, but I refused to actually hit this piece when it moved next to this known bomb, and I got pretty lucky there that was a minor. And this is just more oversight. Unfortunately, it was kind of inevitable that he was going to discover this Marshal. Scout here, scout there. I'm just leaving it open. It's kind of, he already assumed it was a good piece anyway. Not a great sequence for me. I knew that he was going to hit the Marshal instead of the spy, because he was clearly interested in the Marshal. So, but if I actively took the scout with my Marshal, I might sort of make him suspicious that this might be, something I didn't want him to discover, like the spy, because what else would you not want me to discover that's more valuable than the Marshal would be losing the spy? I do get his general there for just a lieutenant, so that's good. Kind of rebalance that info there, because my lieutenant there was kind of expendable, being up 3 of them. But at this point, I'm not really up any info. He knows my most valuable piece. I do know his major right here, and I sort of kind of bluff him, but not really. Have to retreat when he very easily calls that, because I just ran away from his piece there. Or no, the major's here. That's the piece that I had just run away from. The one that I was pretty lucky wasn't a minor, actually. And now he's coming down with a pretty likely minor, straight from the back row with this as its escort. So, something that has me a little nervous. I'm not so sure what to do, because if I let him discover my general cheaply, I'm pretty much out of it. Because then I'm not really going to have an opportunity to get back either a major or the captain that I need. But I'm kind of forced to move my general over, especially because the captain's there. And if I make a big show of protecting my flag, then it's going to be pretty obvious. And an obvious flag is not something you want when you're trying to play down material. So I decide I'm just going to kind of go for it and just like chase the captain from a distance. Kind of think about it for a little bit, and I kind of just move next to what I suspect is probably the minor. Not even really a good reason. I think I kind of figure at this point, might as well, because this is probably a garbage piece that might want to discover it. I know this is a scout. If he wants to discover it, he can. So I just kind of move up and go for it. So move next to that piece, and his move here surprised me. He moves away from it, and I'm recognizing, oh, this is probably a minor, so now I kind of decide I need to stop it. But thankfully, suddenly that kind of causes him to think, I think I need to save my minor from getting trapped. And he does think about it for a little bit, but if I had to guess, I think that's what's going through his mind. And I go ahead and take a gamble. I hit it, and I was correct. It was a captain. It's the very piece I needed. That's the only piece it could have been that keeps me in this game. If it's a lieutenant, that doesn't help because I'm still down 2 pieces. And I already know his major. It's not the major. I already know his colonel. It's not the colonel. And of course, if it's anything lower than a lieutenant, that's not even worth considering. And of course, if it's a Marshal, that's really bad, but it's not the Marshal. And I get a minor too, which is kind of nice. So I'm liking my position a little better here, because I'm actually up now fairly considerably. I'm up 2 lieutenants, I'm up a sergeant, I'm up a minor, and only down that 1 major. And I do know the major, and I know his colonel. He knows my colonel as well. But like I know the piece that I'm down, which is crucial, because a lot of times in these games you might be up the smaller material, down the larger material, and you actually like don't know which piece the larger material is. So I was really thankful that I knew that here. So he comes down with his known colonel. That's expected. I had a lot of move pieces here, but I was going to be able to trade with the colonel just fine. That wasn't really going to be a problem. So I go ahead and move the captain down. I go ahead and trade, but I do realize at this point, I kind of swung my general around to trade it, which I think is a fine play. But I'm left a little vulnerable here. You'll see why shortly. But I decided to keep going on and just go ahead and trade those generals. I don't want his general to have a chance of going to the left side and causing a headache. I just want to get it off the board. I do generally have a tendency of wanting to trade. So he retreats with that, but I move in with that that Marshal, because I think that's his major here. And then I'm going to kind of realize a little bit of a problem here, which is that his major is going to come down and counterattack. And I had a few moves pieces here. I don't think the spy had moved, but I'm pretty sure that scout had. Obviously, the captain was moved. And I think this sergeant definitely was moved, because my general spawned here. I don't think he remembers that, but he definitely does remember that this lieutenant has moved. It's the one that ran away from his captain here earlier, the one I ended up taking with my general. And there's really nothing I can do to save that lieutenant. The only thing I would have needed to do would be to bring down my marshal to guard, and I was kind of, at that point, I was kind of all in on trapping his general and trading. So his major counterattack, you're going to see here, is going to kind of eat away at a little bit of that advantage that I had. And I'm kind of down info here technically, because I would have liked to know where his captain is. I don't technically know his marshal, although I think I have a read. And at this point, I'm not sure if he like remembers this sergeant or not. So I move it over. I think I probably didn't need to do that. I think I kind of killed my sergeant by doing that, because he already like moved next to it and didn't take it earlier. But I guess I figure, to force him to or, be safe, force him to come down with another piece to trap it if he wants it. But I do have a bit of a read on his marshal. I'm thinking it's this one, and I'm thinking this is probably the spy here. This is, I know, is the probably garbage piece that came from here. And I think this is the marshal. It's the only one that really makes sense unless he's got it buried and unmoved here. But go ahead and trade generals, get those off the board. I want to try to take advantage of the fact that I am up 3 smaller pieces still, being the lieutenant, the sergeant, and the minor that I'm up. So I go ahead and come down with the spy there. I wanna try to see if I can kind of mix them up a little bit with what the captain and the spy is. I figure, that's probably a pretty obvious captain, unless he has a captain sitting there, which I don't think I actually considered in the moment. But unless he has a captain sitting here as one of these 2 pieces, or really this one, because I think this is the spy. He's not going to hit that piece because it's probably a captain. And I hit that because why not? It's the captain, so that's good to know. It's a useful discovery. It's better that it wasn't his lieutenant, because that would be annoying. To not discover, the last captain and losing that sergeant. He scouts that bomb there. I'm not too worried. He's not really in a position to take much of a risk about that piece. But my lead in small pieces is evaporating. I'm only up the lieutenant and the minor. He's got pretty dominant positions here over my setup. I kind of can only really use what I've already moved and mobilized into his side of the board here, which is a bit problematic. I'm not really able to use the small advantage in lieutenants or minors that I do have. But I decide chase his scout with my sergeant. Not really much better to do, I guess. So at this point, I'm contemplating what can I do. I figure, well, I think that scout's kind of a dead end. Not really much going to be gained by chasing it more. I'm trying to figure out how I can use my spy or my captain along with my marshal to make something happen in the center. If I shuffle, I have an okay chance because I think he's going to suspect a flag toward the center. So I would feel okay with my flag here, even though he actually did discover this bomb pretty early on. But the fact that my general was over here and, Marshal kind of more centralized, I think these were more likely spots for him. This I'm figuring is probably a minor, and I know certainly I can kill it because I know his captain and his major, but I decide to not hit it because if I took it, then his marshal would probably just come down and trap it, and I'd, not be up a lieutenant anymore. And it ends up being the right decision because I think the best play for him is to actually check out one of these flag locations, not to hit a known bomb. I don't think there's much value in that. But I'm happy to trade minors, the minor that doesn't make up the fake flag and this fake tripod here. I'm happy to trade those 2 minors off once he takes that bomb. But regardless, I'm still kind of shuffling around. I'm not really sure what to do. And at this point, I decide, okay, I'm not even up a sergeant, but like I need to make something happen. I guess in theory I could keep shuffling, but that doesn't seem very satisfying. I think I got a little bit impatient. So I decide, I'm not really doing much of anything. I'm sort of pretending to trap the scout, just kind of doing something with my moves, ostensibly, not really doing anything after all. But he ends up actually coming down with the scout, and he's going to use it pretty shortly here. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll figure I'll do something in the center here. So I come with that sergeant that I have. I decide I'm going to do a little exploring, I think, in the center here. He's going to scout that bomb. Again, not a problem. That is the 3rd bomb of mine that he knows, which is a bit problematic, maybe, if he ends up wanting to lotto. But I'm hoping that he's going to kind of target, one of these 2, being my flag, given that he only has 2 minors left. I think that's a bit of my saving grace at this point, is that I might be able to get him to waste all his miners. And especially, I'm pretty confident I can trade spies at any point that I want. So if need be, I can always just run around the lake with my Marshal. But I decide there, okay, I'm going to go in with my captain in that piece. It's kind of a test. Like, does he hit me with anything? And what I'm testing here is, like, is this something he's concerned about? Right? Like are these bombs that might lead to his flags? I'm pretty sure his flag's somewhere around here. And actually, if he knew that was a captain, that'd be extremely advantageous to hit that with your major. Because you'd kind of simplify the position, which you really want to do if you're him at this point. You transfer being up a major to being up a captain, and you'd sort of take, one of the only pieces I have. But anyway, he doesn't know it's a captain, so he doesn't do that. Anyway, having tested with a captain, and having not, had my captain attacked, I decided to go in with the sergeant, which is really the thing I want to test. And I'm fairly confident that these are not all bombs, especially these two here. Because I think this is the way that kind of leads to his flag. And he didn't, either they're all 3 bombs, or he didn't really have a problem with me being there. And this is a really crucial play, that is a sergeant there. Because what that tells me is, if he had every opportunity to attack a potential miner, if one of those pieces was a miner. Because if this is a bomb, either he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, and these are non-movable pieces, which I kind of decide at this point is probably not very likely. But ultimately I decided, if this is a bomb, I think he hits a potential miner with that sergeant. So I kind of presume, based on that assumption, that I don't think this is a bomb. So I move in with my captain. I'm taking a pretty big risk here, because again, this is not bulletproof. This could be his flag with these 2 pieces movable, and it doesn't care at all if I hit this bomb with a miner or any other piece. So I'm making a big assumption here, but I go for it, and it's a miner. Very, very good. I mean, those are the sort of pieces that I need to be up in order to pull this game out. So I'd say fairly lucky there. I think looking back on it, my logic is a little bit more suspect than I thought it was during the time of the game. But now this is another really crucial point. He trades spies because he realizes that has to be my spy, and I guess he's fine trading them. And at this point, I'm sort of thinking, oh, should I trap his Marshal? Should I move my Marshal over, not allow his to escape? But if I do that, then he can move down with his major and trap my captain, and then I have to move something else, and that, at some later point in the game, he could sort of free my captain, but not in a way that advantages me, because he could come down with the major and his captain and trap whatever piece I just moved here. So I'm kind of thinking maybe it's not such a good idea to trap his Marshal, because then he can trap my captain, and I'd rather be able to move my captain and my Marshal. So I think about that for a while. But I think I end up deciding here I don't want to allow him to have any opportunity to trap my captain with his major. That's definitely the one thing I want to avoid, because that's going to force me to reveal my setup, which is not good for me. I want to keep my pieces movable. And I certainly don't just want to abdicate my position with my Marshal, because then he's going to trap my captain immediately. So I need to sort of keep that position there, but also escape with my captain. And if that means his Marshal can wander around, that's fine. So I think at this point I'm deciding which spot I should move the captain to. I think I end up deciding it doesn't really make a difference, whether I sort of move this way or this way with the captain. Because really my goal here is I would like to trade Marshals, but I want to ensure that my captain can run around the lake. Otherwise he has to trade, and I would be more than happy to trade captains. Very happy to trade captains. But I'm just, I determine I can't ensure that we trade Marshals until I can make sure my captain can roam free. So he moves over with his Marshal there. He's like, oh, okay, great. He's sort of quote unquote trapping himself, or really showing a desire to trade. Like, that's great. Perfect. I'd be fine trading Marshals, and then if I can just run my captain around, hopefully he wastes his last miner, is forced to trade captains with me to progress, and then maybe I can actually win with my advantage in miners. But he's going to do something. It's a really big mistake here. He's going to move this piece, which I wasn't going to hit it anyway, so I don't think it was necessary for him to move it. But you're going to see in just a minute here, and maybe you're already picking up on this, on why that's such a big mistake that he did that. Of course, I can chase it with my captain, but I won't reveal it until it actually happens in the game. I was fairly pleased with myself for for recognizing this. It feels like a bit of a chess move. Maybe I don't play chess very much, but sort of like a, I don't know, something that I would like recognize if I was playing chess more easily than Stratego. Sort of like a forced move advantage. But I'm chasing this piece and I'm bringing it back toward the center because my plan there at this point, I do want to bring it more toward the center. I don't want to have my Marshal, which you're going to see here shortly, is going to get involved in this. I don't want to have to bring it all the way to the corner. So I'm going to chase it. You know, he keeps backing up, but I'm going to chase it over as much as I can. And then at this point, I'm going to move over. He's forced to retreat that major away from my Marshal, and then this frees me up to go and trap this piece. He can no longer stop me because our Marshals were diagonal, but I got that extra tempo by moving that piece over, forcing him to respond with the major. And then I go ahead and pick up this piece. And what is it? Did I waste my time for like a sergeant? No, it's his lieutenant, which technically a sergeant would have been a great get anyway. But lieutenant was perfect because now my lieutenants are expendable. And I think prompted a little bit by the fact that I just got that lieutenant. He makes I'd say a fairly reasonable, but a lotto nevertheless on this piece, and gets a sergeant in exchange. But at this point, if I can trade Marshals, I feel pretty good about this position because he's only got one guess with a minor, and otherwise he can come and trade captains. But I'm up 2 lieutenants, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. So at this point, I can run. I have my kind of ideal situation. I can kind of run around the lake with my captain, force him to advance the game, and he really doesn't have many pieces left at this point, honestly. So my goal then is going to be to trade, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to let me trade captains, is my thinking at this point. But I would love to trade, and then really I can kind of rule the board with my lieutenants, being up 2 of them. It's not completely won if we trade captains, because he is up that sergeant, and I only have 2 lieutenants for 2 lanes. I can't occupy all 3 of those lanes, which would make me feel a lot safer. But I decided at this point, okay, I'm going to move up, occupy the lake there. Run around the lake. He's coming down with, not exactly sure, minor, sergeant. Going to do some discovery, some exploration. So I kind of move around with my captain here. You know, I don't expect him to let me trade with him, but I sort of move next to it. And then to my surprise, he lottos, and the lotto isn't the surprise, but the fact that he's sort of letting me trap him is the surprise. And I was kind of hoping he didn't choose the lotto any further by hitting that scout. Because then that would be really bad, because then he might hit the minor too, and then there's only this one potential flag spot that isn't my real flag. But he lets me trade, which at this point I did lose a lieutenant, but I'm feeling fairly good about this still, because I'm up 2 minors. I'm not sure what this piece is. I think if it's a sergeant, he probably hits, and if it's minor, he probably moves away. So I'm going to I sort of pseudo-discover this piece based on his reaction to my lieutenant. And this lieutenant then, I'm going to try to get it mobilized, and he's going to move away, so I'm thinking, okay, that's probably the minor. So I sort of move up, and I don't think this lieutenant that's been sitting here unmoved all game is a really likely minor, but he's going to move up with a sergeant to challenge it, to make sure it's not a minor. And in fact, he reveals himself the last of his sergeants there. That's trap 2, and he lost the sergeant. I decide, okay, at this point, I'm going to sort of force him to make a decision. I have an opportunity here. I can move up with this minor. I can come around and you take this bomb out. This sergeant is sort of trapped here. And of course, if he trades minors, I'm fine with that. And at this point, I'm just hoping he goes for the fake instead of the real one. But I move that minor out to the side. I start to move up with it towards his flag. Takes the bomb, and that is perfect for me. At this point, I'm guaranteed at least a draw. And at this point, I'm pretty favorable to win, because I have 2 minors. And I can manage his sergeant in between this lieutenant and this sergeant that I have down here. So it's looking really, really good for me. At this point, I'm calculating, okay, can I, like, win the game right here? Can I just, like, charge with this minor? Like, does that work? Or, like, do I need to be patient? Do I have to bring the sergeant up to sort of, like, keep this sergeant at bay and then attack on the lanes? Is this going to take longer? But I'm kind of doing my calculations here. And I think it ends up that I do have enough spaces, I decide here, to make a run for it. So I follow through with that. And I think he makes a little bit of the same calculation himself there, realizing he might be in a bit of trouble. And I think about it a little bit, and I figure that it's better if I preemptively, I don't know if it actually makes a difference, but I felt better preemptively moving up on his sergeant like that. And what I wanted to avoid was him moving his sergeant down preemptively and being able to, like, get in here with the 3 square rule at all. in combination with the major. I'm not sure if that would actually work, but I just wanted to avoid that. And at this point, he needs to decide between stopping my minor or taking my lieutenant. And that's a game-losing decision there. He's going to lose anyway, but that allows me simply free access to his flag. Because he didn't have enough spaces to do both. And by taking the lieutenant, he abdicated his ability to move down, stop the minor. Of course, at that point, I would just force a sergeant trade and then come up with the other minor on the other side. But at that point, he doesn't even... Oh no, he knows it's a minor because I took this bomb. He realizes